I often visit secluded shrines that have been nearly forgotten by people because I have a love for shrines. I'm not sure why, but I feel a sense of relaxation when I'm there. 5 years ago, while I was hiking in search of undiscovered shrines, I stumbled upon an abandoned small shrine that appeared on the verge of collapse. This small shrine was tucked away deep in the mountains where very few people ever ventured. It happened to be my day off when I discovered it. I felt a deep sadness seeing the shrine destined to crumble, so I decided to repair and clean it up to the best of my abilities, hoping to restore its beauty. I didn't want this shrine to be dismantled due to decay, so I made regular trips to the depth of a mountain to repair and clean it up every week on my days off. Each time I visited, I diligently cleaned and made small repairs to the shrine, doing what I could do to preserve its integrity. Over time, I began to notice a significant improvement in the shrine's appearance. When I first encountered it, the shrine was worn down and in a sorry state on the brink of a collapse. Although I lacked the skilled techniques of a professional shrine restorer, my repair work consisted of reinforcing fragile areas of the shrine buildings with the splints purchased from a local hardware store, a minimal and makeshift approach. It was simply the humble efforts of an amateur trying to preserve this shrine. 2 weeks after I began cleaning and repairing the shrine, I came across a boy wearing a kimono sitting on the porch of the main shrine building. I was both impressed and puzzled by the fact that such a curious person made their way to this remote mountain location just to visit the shrine. Upon reflection, it seemed highly unusual for a boy in a kimono to be present in a shrine nestled deep in the mountains. Furthermore, he had a katana hanging on his right hip, adding to the intrigue. As I worked on repairing a fragile section of the main shrine building, he stood up from the porch and walked away, heading in some unknown direction. The following day, when I returned to the shrine to continue my repairs, the boy was nowhere to be found. After I finished work of the day at the shrine, while making my way back along the mountain path, I had a strange feeling that someone was watching me. As I turned my head to the side, I saw the boy with the kimono waving his hand as if bidding me farewell. He continued waving his hand until I reached my car parked near the entrance of the mountain path. I waved back to him and then drove home. About 6 days later, I returned to the shrine. By chance, I stumbled upon a pillar covered in overgrown grass, which bore the name of the shrine, Kongwei Jinja. The paint on the characters had peeled off, and they appeared worn out. I took it upon myself to repaint the faded characters, clearly displaying the name of the shrine. Additionally, I diligently repaired all the fragile areas of the building that I had come across. Gradually, it began to resemble a proper shrine. In fact, it looked even better than when I first started repairing it. After completing the repairs, I made a point to visit this shrine whenever I had free time. As I mentioned before, I couldn't quite explain it, but being in the shrine always brought about a sense of relaxation. On my day off, I made another visit to the shrine. This time I found the boy again, resting near the offering box. He always wore an umbrella hat whenever I encountered him at the shrine, making it difficult for me to see his face as the hat cast a shadow. It was spring, and the trees surrounding the shrine were adorned with beautiful cherry blossoms. I was quite tired from walking all the way to the shrine without using a car, so I decided to take a nap on the porch where the boy had been sitting the other day. Unbeknownst to me, a couple of hours passed while I was asleep. When I woke up, I noticed the boy was still peacefully napping near the offering box. Feeling a sense of gratitude, I placed some oranges and apples as offerings to the shrine in front of the offering box, close to where the boy was sleeping. After returning home, I decided to search for information about the shrine I had been visiting, named Kongwei Jinja. Numerous shrines with the same name appeared in the Google search results, but I could no longer find any specific information about the shrine I had repaired and frequently visited. Perhaps this shrine had been forgotten by people due to its age. On subsequent visit to the shrine, I encountered a young lady in place of the boy. Like the boy, she also wore an umbrella hat which obscured her face from clear view. She held a paper umbrella in her arms. Since I wasn't particularly skilled at conversing with women, I chose to keep my distance and sat on the shrine's porch gazing up at the sky. Before I realized it, she had disappeared. On another day, I arrived at the shrine with the intention of finally speaking to the boy. It may sound exaggerated, but it took me a long time to gather the courage to talk to someone I had never spoken to before, despite encountering him at the shrine numerous times. I approached him and asked, excuse me, do you come here often? He simply nodded and smiled in response. It was the first time I could see his face, previously hidden beneath the shade of his umbrella hat. His face was surprisingly beautiful and handsome. However, he didn't engage in further conversation as he immediately went off somewhere after our brief interaction. After that, I couldn't visit the shrine for over a week due to being extremely busy with work. Once my workload settled, I resumed my usual visit to the shrine. On that day, the young lady was present. As always, I felt a bit nervous around women, so I simply gazed in her direction without drawing attention, pretending to be lost in my own thoughts. Unexpectedly, she suddenly looked at me and started walking towards me. I can't explain why, but I had an intuitive feeling that she meant no harm, so I let my guard down completely. In the next moment, she spoke to me. "Why do you come to this place so often?" Caught off guard by her question, I pondered on how to answer for a while. It's hard to explain, but I love this shrine because it brings me a sense of relaxation, I nervously replied. I had many questions I wanted to ask her, like, do you also come here often? And do you know the boy with kimono who sits on the shrine porch? Couldn't think of anything else. But as she continued questioning me, I gradually became more comfortable communicating with her and managed to ask some questions of my own. I asked her the question I wanted to know the most, who she was and who the boy was. In response, she smiled and called herself Kuramisaha. In that moment, her hair was fluttering in the wind, and I had a clear view of her face. I was stunned by her beauty. Before I knew it, the boy was standing beside us, and they both thanked me before disappearing somewhere. Before long, 4 boys appeared in the shrine while I was sitting on the porch enjoying the serene atmosphere. The tranquility was disrupted as the boys started making noise and causing a commotion. Actually, I had to start wearing a kimono and an umbrella hat when I visited the shrine, trying to emulate the young lady and the boy in order to feel closer to them. The boys found it amusing to see me dressed in a kimono, and they laughed at me. It was quite embarrassing, but it turned into a fond memory. They mentioned that they had been exploring the mountains in search of stag beetles. In their pursuit of these fascinating insects, they stumbled upon the shrine. Mysteriously, the young lady and the boy with the kimono were nowhere to be seen when the group of boys visited the shrine. Even when I was conversing with the boy and the young lady, they would vanish from my sight in an instant as soon as I averted my gaze from them, especially when a group of boys appeared at the shrine. It seems like they would only approach me when I was alone. I visited the shrine even during consecutive holidays using up my accumulated paid vacation just to catch a glimpse of the young lady named Kuramisaha and the boy dressed in a kimono. The boys' group was not present during my visits. However, on numerous occasions, I encountered the boy dressed in a kimono and Kuramisaha at the shrine, and I felt a surge of excitement at the opportunity to converse with them. Although I'm still uncertain about their true identities, I began to suspect that they were not human. This suspicion arose from the fact that they would often vanish suddenly when I momentarily averted my gaze from them. I cherished the wonderful days I spent with them during my time off. We engaged in delightful conversations and occasionally took naps on the shrine's porch. The boy spoke to me with great kindness, and Kuramisaha always greeted me with a gentle and comforting smile. I wished for these moments to last forever, as if I were conversing with angels in heaven. Even after finishing my consecutive days off, I continued to visit the shrine regularly. One day, a group of boys who often came to play around the shrine brought a very strange box with a foreboding atmosphere from somewhere in the mountains. The box was covered in many seal amulets on the outside. No matter how I looked at it, I sensed that the box was not a good thing, even though I had no knowledge of what was inside. One of the boys didn't hesitate to open it, and nobody tried to stop him from doing so. The other 3 boys just watched what he was doing after opening the box. As soon as he opened the box, the boy suddenly convulsed and started to suffer.
Upon witnessing the scene, the rest of the boys quickly ran away from him. Intuitively, I realized it was not safe to stay where I was, so I immediately tried to rush out of the shrine. As I glanced back, I noticed that the boy who had suffered was still standing there in a daze, while the other had fled. In the next moment, the boy wearing a kimono swiftly pierced the suffering boy's body with a katana he had at his side. Surprisingly, there was no bleeding from where he was pierced by the boy in the kimono. I immediately called for an ambulance. From that day on, I never actually encountered the boys again, and I don't know what happened to them. The boy in the kimono didn't tell me why he did that to him. He didn't explain, but somehow I understood the reasons behind his actions. A few days later, I informed them that I would be moving to another city and would no longer be able to visit the shrine. After hearing my explanation, the boy presented me with a katana, and the Kuramitsuha gave me a paper umbrella as a farewell gift. I still keep these gifts in my house. The reason I share this story is that I eventually came to understand the true identity of the two siblings I frequently interacted with at the shrine. Interestingly, this memory suddenly resurfaced in my mind, and I accidentally recalled the name of the beautiful woman with the paper umbrella, Kuramitsuha. According to the chronicles of Japan, Kuramitsuha is believed to be a dragon god who disguised herself as a woman. She is said to have been born from the sword of the first earth god, Izanagi. Kuramitsuha is revered as the deity overseeing water and the source for springs in nature. Collapsed and abandoned shrines are not uncommon throughout Japan. It is often the case that climbers stumble upon these abandoned shrines while making their way up the mountains. In the past, when people held strong religious beliefs in Shinto, they would voluntarily clean up and repair these shrines even in the absence of a priest to tend to them. However, as time went on, modern society religious faith in Shinto gradually waned, and the care for abandoned shrines dwindled as well. The woman who introduced herself as Kuramitsuha may very well have been an incarnation of deity, and it is likely that she felt a deep sadness about the state of these forgotten shrines no longer cared for by anyone. Perhaps, in their own way, they were expressing their gratitude to me for the small contribution I made by cleaning up and repairing the abandoned shrine in the middle of the mountain. I firmly believe that the woman I encountered at the shrine were indeed the dragon god Kuramitsuha.